My family never celebrated my birthday. Not once. They just said I should be grateful they didn't throw me out. I don't remember anyone ever calling me Marie at home. That name was on my school ID, on the doctor's forms, on every boring little envelope they shoved in my backpack. But not once did it come from the mouths of the people I lived with. I was just that girl. Sometimes, her. Mostly silence. My mother had me after an affair. The family, my family, forgave her, apparently. They let her stay. Let me stay. But the air around me never thawed. My not father, the man who raised my siblings, never said more than a grunt in my direction. He'd talk through me, past me, like I was some blurry stain on the wall. My mother didn't scream or throw things. Her cruelty was quieter, colder. Like standing next to a fridge left open too long. She gave my siblings hugs, back rubs, asked them about their day. Me? Nothing. Just short nods and long sighs. I remember once, I fell off my bike and scraped both knees so bad I was shaking. My sister ran to Mom and said, "She's bleeding." My mom looked at me through the window, shrugged, and said, "She'll live." I was 8. After that, I stopped telling her when things hurt. My brother used to joke I was the "oops baby," except it wasn't a joke, not really. He and my sister always made sure I knew I didn't belong. They'd roll their eyes when I spoke, mock the way I dressed, laugh when I cried. At dinners, I'd sit while they passed plates over me, around me, never to me unless someone noticed too late. My birthdays were the loudest silence of all. For my brother, there were parties, Nerf guns, pizza, cousins coming over. For my sister, there were cupcakes, glitter, karaoke. For me? Forgotten. One year I got a broken mug. Another year, a $5 bill left on the counter like a tip for existing. I used to wait all day, thinking maybe they were planning a surprise. They weren't. They just didn't care. So I started pretending I didn't either. At 16, I bought myself a tiny cake from the gas station. Ate it alone in my room while my brother had friends over for movie night. No one noticed. That's when I stopped hoping. Stopped wishing. Stopped asking. My family had a favorite saying, something they pulled out when I was too quiet, or too sad, or dared to want something. "You should be grateful we didn't give you away." Like they deserved a medal for not abandoning me. Like love was some bonus prize I wasn't quite worthy of. And the worst part? I believed them. I thought maybe if I was better, quieter, smarter, less needy, they'd change. But they never did. I was born into that house like a trespasser. And I learned to move like one too, careful, silent, small. But even now, years later, I can still hear it. That phrase. That warning. That reminder. You should be grateful we didn't give you away. Every November 4th, it echoes louder than the year before. College felt like leaving a war zone without knowing you'd been in one. I got a scholarship, packed 2 suitcases, and left without a goodbye. No one asked where I was going. No one helped me load the car. I remember sitting on the bus with this weird mix of fear and relief, like I'd stolen something and wasn't sure if I'd be caught or congratulated. The room I rented was barely bigger than a closet. The wallpaper peeled. The pipes hissed. But it was mine. And no one there knew I was a mistake. I worked evenings at a campus cafe, folded tips into my notebook, and paid rent one scraped-up dollar at a time. Every November 4th still felt like a small funeral, though. I'd try to treat it like any other day, but my body always remembered. I'd get cold for no reason. Heavy. Once, I cried in the walk-in fridge during my shift because someone said, "Happy birthday," to another girl, and it hit me how no one had ever said it like they meant it. Then I met Chris. It wasn't love at first sight or fireworks, like stepping into a warm room after a long storm. We met when he held the door for me at the library and I dropped half my books. He helped me gather them without saying anything stupid, and then he asked if I wanted to get a coffee, like it was the most natural thing in the world. I said no the first time. And the second. On the third try, I said yes. Because something in me wanted to believe not everyone saw me as disposable. Chris was easy to be around. He never pushed. He just stayed. He remembered my schedule. Saved me a seat in class. Let me talk without fixing anything. One night, maybe 6 months in, he asked what I wanted to do for my birthday. I froze. I told him I hated it. That it was just another day and didn't matter. He looked at me like I'd confessed to never breathing. "Marie," he said, soft but serious, "you deserve to be celebrated." I laughed it off. Told him it was no big deal. But something in him didn't let it go. A year into our relationship, he sat me down and said, "You're not dragging their pain with you forever. Let me give you one good birthday. Just one. You don't even have to smile if you don't want to." I wanted to say no. I wanted to disappear. But I said yes. Because part of me was curious what it felt like to be wanted. Chris rented this cozy, warm space with string lights and a little balcony. He ordered food from a local place I'd once said I liked. Helped me pick out a dress. Told me I didn't need to invite anyone I didn't want, that this wasn't about performance, it was about presence. About feeling alive, even for a night. I cried when I saw the setup. He just held me and said, "This is what normal looks like. And you deserve normal." 2 days before the party, my phone rang. Unknown number. I knew that tone. My mother. Her voice like winter wind, flat, urgent, false. "Your father's in the hospital," she said, meaning the man who never once asked how I was doing. "We need help. Financially." I asked what happened. She snapped, "Don't play dumb. This isn't about details. We need you to step up for once." I froze. The money I had left, every dollar, was in this birthday. This one night where I wasn't a shadow. I told her I couldn't help. She went quiet, then said, "Of course." Still selfish, as always. My sister sent a screenshot of the hospital bill. My brother left a voicemail dripping with contempt, not surprised. "You've always been the same, cold, fake, useless." I didn't respond. I sat on the floor and cried until Chris came home. I showed him the texts. The missed calls. I said, "Maybe they're right." He took the phone from my hands and called my mother. "I don't know everything," he said, "but I remember this. She doesn't owe you anything. And for once, she chose herself, and I'm proud of her for that." When he hung up, I wasn't sure if I should scream or laugh. But I felt it. The shift. The click. Someone had stood between me and the storm. And didn't move. The night of the party was soft and golden. My friends came. Not many, just the ones who made life feel easier. There was music I liked, food I picked, laughter that didn't feel like surveillance. And me, in a simple dress I'd never let myself wear before, feeling like I had a body again. Not a burden. Not a mistake. A person. I posted one photo, not for attention, just because I wanted proof. Proof I'd been happy once. The next day? Silence. Then a message from my mother, "You embarrassed us. Posting that. Dancing around like we didn't raise you better." My sister posted a vague story with white text on a black background. "Some people can't live without drama and validation." No tags, of course. Just enough to sting. 2 days later, they showed up. No warning. No call. I heard the knock, then the yelling. Right there in the hall, in front of my door, my mother shouting about betrayal, about how I'd turned my back on the people who let me live. "We gave you everything," she screamed. "And this is how you repay us?" My sister added, "We should have known you'd make it about you, like always." I didn't open the door. I didn't say a word. I called the police. My hands shook, but my voice didn't. When the officers arrived and asked if I wanted to press charges, I just said, "No. I want them gone." And they went. Not willingly, not quietly, but they left. My neighbors peeked through their peepholes, whispering behind doors. And me? I stood still, heart pounding but calm. For the first time in my life, I hadn't shrunk. I hadn't begged. I'd chosen peace over permission. And it felt like breathing fresh air after years underground. After everything, we left. Chris booked us a little cabin by the water, not fancy. He didn't say much on the drive, just reached over every now and then to squeeze my hand like he was reminding me, "You're here, you're safe, you chose right." I cried the first night. Not from sadness, not really. Just release. It was like my body had finally exhaled something it had been holding for 25 years. I walked barefoot in the grass. Drank coffee without looking over my shoulder. Fell asleep on his chest and didn't wake up panicked. For the first time ever, my life didn't feel like borrowed space. A week later, we heard my father, the one who never was, had been discharged from the hospital. My brother texted. Just one sentence, "Mom says you kicked us when we were down." I didn't answer. I read it once, twice, and then deleted it. I wasn't angry. I wasn't hurt. Just, done. That door, that version of me, it was gone. 6 months later, Chris proposed on a rooftop at sunset. He stuttered, dropped the ring, and almost fell trying to catch it. I laughed so hard I couldn't speak. He said, "Guess that's a yes," and I nodded into his chest. We planned a small wedding. No pressure. Just love. Friends. People who chose us. People we chose. The guest list didn't include anyone from my bloodline. No mother, no siblings, no one who looked at me like I was an obligation. I didn't even send invitations. And the strange part? It didn't sting. Not even a little. I wore a dress I picked with no one's opinion but mine. I walked down the aisle to music that made me cry for the right reasons. I saw faces smiling not because they had to, but because they were happy for me. That was my family. Chris's parents cried more than mine ever did. My friends danced like we were kids again. No tension. No judgment. Just this warm, golden kind of safety I used to think only existed in other people's lives. At one point during the night, I looked around the room, and something clicked. It wasn't a fairy tale. It wasn't some sudden healing. But it was enough. It was mine. And for the first time, that was more than enough. Family isn't who raised you. It's who sees you. Who hears you when you whisper. Who stays when you shake. Chris held my hand under the table during the speeches, and I thought, this is what I was waiting for all along. Not approval. Not apologies. Just someone who looked at me and didn't see a mistake. I used to think I needed my mother to say sorry. I don't anymore. I needed her to love me. I don't anymore. I needed to be chosen, and I was. Just not by them. I don't think they ever meant to hurt me. Not on purpose. That's the thing, they were kind. Respectable. They volunteered at church, paid their bills on time, smiled at the neighbors. Everyone thought they were saints for adopting a little girl when they already had a perfect son. I was told that story 1,000 times. You were chosen, they'd say, you're special. But it didn't feel special. It felt like walking into a party where everyone already had someone to dance with. From the outside, our house looked fine. Quiet. Stable. Inside, it was a spotlight on him and a dim corner for me. Daniel, their golden boy. Soccer star, straight A's, blue-eyed and loud. Me? I was the one who got good grades and was told, don't brag. The one who got AB and heard, why can't you be more like your brother? I learned early to stay small. Say thank you even when I didn't feel it. Apologize for things I hadn't done. My birthday was never forgotten, just minimized. A sweater 2 sizes too big. A cupcake with no candle. One year, Daniel got a trip to the mountains. I got to come along, as long as I didn't complain. I started cutting when I was 13. Not to die. Just to feel something sharp and mine. I never went deep. Just enough to prove I was real. I hid it under sleeves, behind good manners. No one ever noticed. Of course they didn't. They were too busy filming Daniel's games. I think the turning point, the moment something snapped, was that day in the kitchen. I was 14. Sitting quietly, doing homework. Mom was on the phone, pacing. She didn't know I was listening. She laughed and said, I thought I could love her like my own. I really did. But I don't know. Maybe I was just trying to fix something in myself. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. She left the room and I just sat there, pencil in hand, math problem half solved, like a mannequin someone forgot to pose. That night I cleaned my room spotless and didn't speak a word at dinner. No one asked why. I think that's when I stopped hoping. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I was just out. Emotionally unplugged. For the next few years I lived like a tenant. I showed up. Did my chores. Got good grades. Laughed when expected. But inside, there was nothing but white noise. My parents thought I was maturing. She's so independent, they'd say. No. I was fading. That's the part no one tells you about growing up unwanted. You become an expert at pretending you're fine. You become so good at disappearing that one day, you wake up and realize you're not even sure what your own voice sounds like anymore. College was supposed to be just an escape. A way out. I didn't plan on finding anything there, not people, not purpose, not myself. I just needed space. I picked a school far enough that my parents couldn't drop by, but not so far they could say I was running. I kept the calls polite, short. Told them I was settling in and staying focused. They didn't ask much. I think they were relieved I wasn't a problem. I worked weekends at a bookstore. Took classes during the week. Went days without speaking unless it was required. I sat in the back row. Ate alone. Drew on napkins, receipts, my own arms. Just to keep my hands busy. Just to keep from floating off. Then came Isla. I didn't notice her at first, or maybe I did, but didn't let myself look. She was one of those people who didn't try to be seen, and somehow still was. She doodled constantly. Not in a cutesy way. It looked like her pen couldn't stand still because her brain never stopped. One day, I dropped my pen and she passed it back with a smile like we were already friends. You draw too? She asked, like she knew. I mumbled something about not really. She tilted her head and said, that's okay. Most people don't know they're artists till someone gives them a frame. I didn't know how to respond to that. She started sitting next to me. Didn't push. Just sat. Some days we barely spoke. Others, she'd ask questions that dug under my ribs without hurting. Like, what color do you feel like today? Or, do you ever imagine being someone's first thought? She made me feel strange. Exposed. Seen. I didn't know if I liked it, or if I was just terrified. One night, after class, she walked me home. We stopped on the bridge near campus, and she said, you don't have to be quiet with me. And I said, I'm not. She looked at me for a long time and whispered, you're screaming in silence. I hated her for being right. I loved her for not flinching. Over weeks, months, I let her in. Not all at once. Just cracks. Small ones. I told her I used to cut. That I still sometimes wanted to. That I didn't know who I was without being the background noise to someone else's life. She didn't try to fix me. Just stayed. I kissed her first. Shaking. Eyes closed. Like jumping off a roof without knowing what was below. She kissed me back like it was okay to fall. And for the first time in my life, I believed that maybe softness wasn't dangerous. It had been a good stretch. No messages. No guilt trips. Just air. I posted a few drawings online. Just pieces I felt okay letting go of. A girl curled into herself, a window with bars made of measuring tape, a mouth stitched shut but glowing from within. People started following me. Commenting. This feels like me. I've never seen my feelings drawn before. I didn't know what to do with that. I'd spent so long trying not to be seen, now strangers were looking straight at me, and not turning away. Then came the call. Unknown number. I don't know why I picked up. Maybe old reflex. It was my brother. Daniel. I hadn't heard his voice in 2 years. He got right to the point. He was in trouble. Legal trouble. Something stupid, a fight, a lawyer, the kind of mess our parents weren't equipped to fix. He said they needed help. My help. Not emotionally. Not to talk. Just money. Support. Presence. You're still family, he said, like that was a reason. I didn't say anything. Just listened. Then he added something soft, something I wasn't ready for. I knew how they treated you. I did. I just didn't want to be next. That hit harder than it should have. Because it was honest. Because it was too late. I said, you didn't have to be like them. He didn't respond. I told him I hoped things worked out. That I wasn't angry. But I wouldn't be coming back. That night, my mom wrote me. Not a question. Not a check-in. Just one line, you've disgraced this family enough. I sat staring at it, not angry, just numb. Then I opened Instagram. I posted one of my newest drawings, a girl with a stitched mouth standing before a fire. In the flame, her eyes were glowing. She didn't burn. She warmed. Caption, I used to fear pain. Now I know it can keep me alive. The likes didn't matter. But I saw one comment that made me sit down. It just said, thank you. I didn't know anyone else grew up like this. I cried. Not from sadness, but from recognition. From finally being seen by someone without needing to beg. A week later, Isla helped me hang a small print in a cafe. It sold in 2 days. Another one after that. And suddenly people weren't just seeing the pain, they were valuing it. And for once, that didn't feel dirty. Then the last blow came. A long, cold email from my father. The subject line read, Final request. Inside, your mother is suffering. You should be here. Whether or not you agree with how things were, we took you in. We gave you everything. You owe us this. I didn't reply. I forwarded it to my own email, then deleted it from theirs. But I couldn't stop thinking about the word owe. As if survival came with interest. As if being tolerated counted as a debt I now had to repay. I showed Isla. She read it in silence. Then said, what do you owe someone who watched you drown and held the rope? I didn't answer. I just leaned into her shoulder and stayed there a long time. We moved 2 months later. Not far, just enough that the streets looked different and I could breathe without scanning for familiar cars. The apartment was small and full of plants. Isla filled the window with cactuses and coffee mugs she refused to throw out. I filled the walls with sketches, messy, unfinished, loud. We didn't talk about the past much. Not because we were pretending, but because we didn't have to. It was always there, like a scar you stop noticing until someone else asks if it hurts. I worked part-time in a local shop and started saying, I'm an artist, out loud without choking on it. One day the gallery owner who saw my prints in the cafe asked if I wanted to show a full set. I said yes and panicked for 2 weeks straight. The opening night I stood in a black turtleneck I didn't feel worthy of, counting the cracks in the floor, waiting for no one to come. But they came. Not hundreds, but enough. A woman in her 40s stared at one piece for a long time, a girl in a bathroom, her arms wrapped tight, shadow behind the curtain shaped like a mother. The woman came up to me and said, "If I'd seen this 20 years ago, maybe my daughter would still be here." I didn't know what to say. I just nodded. And she hugged me, not hard, not long, just enough to say she meant it. I sat on the gallery floor after everyone left. Isla brought me tea. We didn't speak. I looked at the canvas again. That girl, the one I drew from memory, the one who looked so small, she wasn't just me. She was everyone who learned to stay quiet to survive. And tonight, people saw her. Not pitied her. Saw. I haven't heard from my parents since. Not one word. "No, we're proud," "No, we saw your name online." And it doesn't ache like it used to. Some absences stop bleeding and just become space. The kind you can fill with light, and books, and people who choose you back. I still have bad days. I still flinch when the phone rings late. I still wonder what kind of mother I'd be. But I don't vanish anymore. I don't whisper when I want to scream. I don't shrink to keep the peace. My voice cracks sometimes. My hands shake. But I speak. And that's enough. Family isn't who raised you. It's who stayed when you started raising yourself. Isla once said, "Maybe you're not broken, maybe they just never deserved your whole." And now, sitting in this apartment full of warmth and drawings and breath, I finally believe her. Subscribe, hit the like button, and explore more fascinating stories.